Human helped an alien girl mend her ancestral crest. Its meaning to her shifted his world. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the main character, Jack Turner. Jack lived in the bustling city of Chicago, a place filled with the constant hum of daily life. To the outside world, he seemed like just another scientist working in a laboratory, his days filled with research and experiments, the quiet hum of machines his constant companion. But Jack had always felt there was something more to life, something just beyond his grasp. Little did he know that something was about to come crashing into his world. One evening, as Jack was leaving his office after a long day, he noticed something strange in the sky, a streak of bright light cutting through the dusk. At first, he thought it was just another meteor, but then the object changed direction, almost as if it were aware of him. Jack's heart raced, a strange sense of urgency gripping him. He decided to follow it. It wasn't long before he found himself on the outskirts of the city, near an old, abandoned factory. The light had landed, and standing in its glow was a young woman, unlike anyone Jack had ever seen before. Her skin shimmered with an ethereal glow, a soft lavender hue that seemed to change as she moved. She was taller than most women Jack had met, with delicate features and bright, large eyes that held a wisdom far beyond her years. "I'm not from here," she said, her voice calm, yet there was an unspoken plea in her words. "I need your help." Jack, stunned by the sight before him, didn't know what to say. But he could tell this wasn't some ordinary encounter. This was something far beyond his understanding. The woman, who introduced herself as Lyra, explained that she came from a distant star system, a place where her people had long ago abandoned their ancestral customs. She held in her possession an ancient crest, a symbol of her people's history, but it had been damaged, its meaning lost over time. She needed Jack's help to restore it, to unlock its true power. Despite the shock of meeting an alien, Jack couldn't deny the strange pull he felt. This wasn't just a scientific mystery. It was a chance to be a part of something greater, something that could change his life forever. He agreed to help her, not knowing that this decision would soon lead him down a path that would challenge everything he believed about the universe and about himself. As they began their journey together, Jack couldn't help but feel that something deep inside of him was beginning to shift. Little did he know, the restoration of Lyra's ancestral crest would not only change her world, it would change his too. Jack's life, once quiet and predictable, was now anything but. The moment he agreed to help Lyra, everything changed. Every day felt like a new discovery. She was an alien, yes, but there was something profoundly human about her. Her curiosity, her empathy, and the way she seemed to experience everything with such intensity. As they spent more time together, Jack found himself not just fascinated by her culture, but deeply moved by the burden she carried. Her people had long ago lost touch with their past, and that ancestral crest, an artifact of immense cultural importance, was a key to unlocking the future. But it was damaged, and its meaning had faded into the annals of forgotten history. It was up to Jack to help her restore it. Their first challenge came when they found the ancient text Lyra had carried with her. It was written in a language Jack had never seen, filled with symbols that seemed to shift and change as he stared at them. But Lyra was no ordinary alien. She had an innate understanding of her people's history, and with Jack's help, they began to decipher the text. It wasn't just about fixing a broken crest. It was about reconnecting with her heritage, reviving a culture that had been lost. As they worked together, Jack noticed something shifting within him. What had started as a scientific curiosity had turned into something much more profound. He wasn't just helping an alien. He was participating in something bigger than himself. He was restoring a part of history, a piece of a civilization that had been torn apart by time and distance. Lyra's presence, her quiet strength, made him see the world in a new light. It wasn't just the crest that needed mending. It was the connection between their two worlds, two very different cultures, that needed healing. Days turned into weeks, and the bond between them grew. They spent hours in Jack's lab, working on the artifact, studying the ancient texts, and slowly piecing together the puzzle. It wasn't easy, and there were times when Jack felt frustrated. The symbols seemed so alien, and every breakthrough felt like a fleeting moment of success before the next challenge appeared. But every time they encountered a setback, Lyra's unwavering determination pushed him forward. She believed in their mission, and that belief began to fuel Jack's own resolve. One evening, as they sat side by side, poring over the symbols once more, Jack looked at Lyra and saw something in her eyes that he hadn't noticed before: vulnerability. For all her strength and wisdom, she carried a quiet sadness, a longing for a past she could never truly touch. It made him realize just how much this mission meant to her, not just the restoration of a crest, but the restoration of her identity, her culture, and the very essence of who she was. "This means everything to me," she said softly, her voice breaking the silence. "Not just for my people, but for me. I need to understand where I come from." Jack didn't know what to say. He'd always seen himself as someone who solved problems, who found answers through logic and reason. But this was different. This wasn't a problem that could be solved with equations or experiments. This was about heart, about understanding a culture and a people, and helping someone find their way home. He nodded, feeling the weight of her words. This was no longer just about helping an alien fix a broken artifact. It was about helping her rediscover herself. As the days passed, Jack and Lyra grew closer, their bond deepening with each new discovery. And as they worked together to unlock the true meaning of the crest, Jack realized that this journey had shifted something in him too. He wasn't the same person who had first met Lyra. His world, his perspective on life, had changed in ways he couldn't quite put into words. The lines between science and emotion, between reason and belief, had blurred, and for the first time in his life, Jack felt like he was part of something truly extraordinary. As Jack and Lyra continued their work, the bond between them deepened. What started as an intellectual challenge had turned into something far more personal. They were no longer just two individuals from vastly different worlds. They were partners in a mission that transcended borders, time, and space. Jack found himself more invested in the journey, not just because of the science behind the restoration of the crest, but because of the profound emotional connection that was developing between him and Lyra. Every day, Lyra shared stories of her people, their customs, their beliefs, their way of life. She spoke of a time when her ancestors were united, their culture thriving, and their technology advanced. But now, that world was lost to her, scattered across the cosmos. Her people had become scattered and disconnected, unable to hold on to their heritage. The crest was the last remaining link to her past. Lyra's voice would often crack as she spoke of the loss her people felt, how they had to abandon their traditions to survive in a universe that didn't understand them. Jack could see the weight of this loss on her shoulders. It wasn't just about the crest anymore. It was about identity, history, and belonging. As they worked late into the night, studying ancient artifacts and decoding cryptic symbols, Jack began to see the true significance of what they were doing. He was helping to restore more than just a physical object. They were resurrecting an entire culture, bringing back a piece of history that had been forgotten by the universe. The work was slow, but every small breakthrough felt monumental. There were moments of frustration when the code seemed impossible to crack or when the solution seemed just out of reach. But in those moments, Lyra's persistence never wavered. Her resolve was unshakable. She would always remind Jack that this was not just a task to complete. It was a mission to heal. One evening, as they pored over a new batch of symbols, something clicked. Jack's eyes widened as he recognized a pattern, something that had eluded them for days. He traced his finger over the delicate lines of the crest, and suddenly, the meaning became clear. It wasn't just a symbol of power, as they had once thought. It was a map, a guide to the lost worlds of Lyra's ancestors, a key to reconnecting with the people who had once thrived in unity. Jack turned to Lyra, his heart pounding in his chest. This is it. This is what we've been looking for." Lyra's eyes sparkled with disbelief and awe. "You found it," she whispered. "You found the way home." For the first time, Jack saw a true sense of hope in her eyes. This mission had gone from being a puzzle to solve to something far more personal. It was about reconnecting her with her roots, with her past, and with the future of her people. Jack felt an overwhelming sense of pride in what they had accomplished together. But as the pieces of the puzzle came together, Jack couldn't ignore the gnawing feeling in the back of his mind. He had never expected this journey to change him so completely. He had come to help an alien fix an artifact, but in the process, he had found something far more valuable. He had found a new perspective on life, a deeper understanding of the connections that bind all beings, no matter how different they may seem. The more Jack and Lyra discovered, the more they realized how much they still had to learn about each other, about their worlds, and about themselves. The restoration of the Crest was only the beginning. Jack knew that the true journey was just beginning to unfold. As Jack and Lyra stood there, staring at the newly discovered map within the Crest, a sense of accomplishment filled the air. It had taken weeks of tireless work, countless hours spent deciphering ancient symbols, but they had done it. They had found a way to reconnect Lyra with her people. It was a breakthrough, but it also brought with it an overwhelming realization. Their journey was far from over. The map was a guide, yes, but it was only the first step toward something much bigger. There were more secrets to uncover, more challenges to face. And it wasn't just about the Crest anymore. It was about Lyra's future, the future of her people, and the possibilities of what they could achieve together. As they prepared to follow the map, Jack couldn't help but wonder what lay ahead. He had never imagined that helping an alien would lead him on such a transformative journey. His understanding of the world, of life itself, had shifted in ways he couldn't explain. It wasn't just science or logic anymore. It was about connection, empathy, and discovery. Lyra, for her part, had changed too. Her once quiet sadness had been replaced with hope. The restoration of the Crest had sparked something inside of her, a sense of purpose, a feeling of belonging. For the first time in years, she could see a way forward, a way to reconnect with the past, and build a future for her people. But the road ahead was not without its dangers. The map revealed the locations of ancient ruins scattered across distant planets, many of which were in uncharted territory. Some of these places had been abandoned for centuries, forgotten by time and space. Others were rumored to be in the hands of those who would do anything to keep their secrets hidden. As the realization set in, Jack and Lyra both understood that their mission was far more complex than they had initially imagined. It was no longer just about restoring an artifact. It was about uncovering lost knowledge, rediscovering long-forgotten civilizations, and potentially facing unknown threats. The risks were higher now, but the stakes were also greater. The journey ahead would test not just their skills and intellect, but their resolve, their trust in one another, and their ability to adapt to the challenges that lay ahead. One evening, as they sat together, reviewing their plans, Lyra turned to Jack. "Are you ready for this?" she asked, her voice steady, yet carrying a hint of uncertainty. Jack looked at her, his mind racing. He had come this far with her. He had helped her uncover her past, and now they were about to embark on a journey that would change everything. "I'm ready," Jack replied, his voice firm, though the weight of what lay ahead was clear in his eyes. "We're in this together." And with that, they set their course, knowing that whatever challenges they faced, they would face them side by side. The unknown future stretched out before them, filled with both promise and danger, but Jack and Lyra were no longer just two individuals from different worlds. They were partners, united by a common purpose, and together, they were ready to take on whatever the universe had in store for them. The journey to the first location on the map had been long and filled with challenges. Jack and Lyra had traveled across vast stretches of space, following the coordinates indicated by the ancient Crest. The journey was both thrilling and terrifying, each passing day deepening their bond as they faced the unknown together. As they approached the first planet, an uncharted world with no name, the tension between them was palpable. This was their first real test. The planet's surface appeared desolate, a barren landscape of cracked earth and jagged mountains, as if it had been abandoned for centuries. The air was thick with an eerie silence, broken only by the hum of their ship's engine. Jack looked out the window, scanning the landscape. "This doesn't look like it's been lived on for a long time," he said, his voice low. "Are you sure this is the place?" Lyra nodded. "This is it. The map never lies. The ruins we're looking for should be near the largest mountain range." Jack took a deep breath. They had no idea what dangers lay ahead, but they had come this far. There was no turning back now. The landing was smooth, and as they stepped out onto the planet's surface, The gravity felt slightly heavier than Earth's, making every step feel deliberate. The sky above them was a dull, muted gray, and the wind carried a cold, dry bite. Lyra led the way, her eyes scanning the horizon as if she could sense something hidden just beneath the surface. As they walked through the desolate landscape, Jack marveled at the stillness. It was as if the planet itself was holding its breath, waiting for something. They eventually reached the base of the mountain range, where they found a narrow path leading into a hidden valley. The path was overgrown with vines and moss, but Lyra moved with confidence, her pace unhurried. She had been here before, or so it seemed. "This is where the first clue is," she said, looking at Jack. "The entrance to the ruins should be just beyond this ridge." Jack followed closely behind, feeling a mixture of excitement and unease. The air here was thick with mystery. As they crested the ridge, they came upon a massive stone doorway carved into the side of the mountain. The entrance was partially obscured by overgrowth, but there was no mistaking the symbols etched into the stone. Lyra's eyes lit up. "This is it. These are the markings of my people." She stepped forward and placed her hand against the stone. A soft, low hum resonated through the ground. Jack felt the vibrations beneath his feet. The stone slowly shifted, revealing the entrance to the ancient ruins. A dim light spilled out from the darkness inside, casting long shadows on the ground. Lyra turned to Jack, her expression serious. "Once we enter, there's no going back. We don't know what we'll find inside, but this is the key. This is what I've been searching for." Jack nodded. He had come this far, and there was no way he was turning back now. They stepped into the ruins together, the weight of the unknown heavy on their shoulders. The walls were lined with strange symbols and alien technology, most of which Jack couldn't even begin to understand. The air inside was thick with dust, and the faint smell of old, decaying stone filled his nostrils. They moved deeper into the ruins, the flickering light from their lantern casting eerie shadows on the walls. As they descended further into the depths of the ancient structure, Jack began to sense that they weren't alone. A presence, unseen but unmistakable, seemed to be watching them, following their every step. But they pressed on, knowing that what lay ahead could change everything, for Lyra, for her people, and for their understanding of the universe itself. As they moved deeper into the ruins, the air grew heavier, and the sense of being watched became more pronounced. Jack's footsteps echoed in the vast, empty space, a constant reminder of how far they had come. The flickering lanterns cast long, twisting shadows that seemed to dance and sway along the walls, making the ancient symbols even more mysterious. Lyra walked ahead, her movements graceful but cautious, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings. Jack could feel the tension radiating from her, a quiet anticipation mixed with fear. They reached a massive chamber, the walls covered in intricate carvings that seemed to tell the history of Lyra's people. The symbols were more elaborate here, almost alive in their complexity. Jack stopped for a moment to take it all in. The carvings depicted beings that were both familiar and alien, their features both human and something more, something otherworldly. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, a raised stone platform with a small indentation at its center. On the pedestal was a glowing object, faintly pulsing with energy. Lyra approached it slowly, her expression unreadable. "This is it," she whispered, her voice full of reverence. "The Heartstone. It's what we've been searching for." Jack stepped closer, examining the artifact. The Heartstone was no bigger than the palm of his hand, its surface smooth and shimmering with an otherworldly light. He could feel the energy emanating from it, as if it were alive, pulsing with the memories and knowledge of Lyra's people. But as Lyra reached out to touch it, something strange happened. The air around them grew cold, and a low hum reverberated through the chamber. The light from the Heartstone flickered, casting odd, shifting shadows across the room. Suddenly, the ground beneath their feet trembled, and a deep, rumbling sound echoed from somewhere within the ruins. Lyra froze, her hand just inches away from the stone. "What's happening?" Jack asked, his voice tight with concern. Lyra's face paled as she stepped back. "I don't know. This shouldn't be happening." Before she could say anything more, the ground shook again, stronger this time. The walls seemed to pulse, and the symbols on them began to glow, their meaning shifting before their eyes. The entire chamber was alive, reacting to the Heartstone in ways that neither Jack nor Lyra understood. "We have to get out of here," Lyra said urgently, grabbing Jack's arm. But as they turned to leave, the entrance to the chamber slammed shut with a deafening sound, trapping them inside. The temperature dropped even further, and the strange hum grew louder, almost deafening. Jack's heart raced as he turned to Lyra. "What is this? What's happening?" Lyra's eyes were wide with fear. "I don't know, but we've triggered something. The Heartstone is more than just a symbol of our past. It's a key, a lock to something we've never understood." Panic began to rise in Jack's chest as he looked around the chamber, trying to find a way out. The walls were closing in, and the light from the Heartstone was growing brighter and more erratic. "We need to find a way to shut it down," Jack said, his mind racing. Lyra nodded, her eyes narrowing with determination. "There's a control mechanism hidden somewhere in this room. I know it, but it's not going to be easy to find." The room seemed to close in on them, the walls now pulsing with an unnatural rhythm. Jack and Lyra were trapped, and the Heartstone's power was spiraling out of control. They had to figure out how to stop it before the entire ruin collapsed around them. But time was running out, and the ruins themselves seemed to be fighting against them. They had no choice but to act quickly, or they would be trapped forever, lost in the heart of an ancient mystery that neither of them fully understood. The rumbling continued to shake the ancient ruins as Jack and Lyra scrambled to find a way out. The Heartstone's energy was spiraling out of control, its pulsing light growing brighter and more erratic by the second. The air was thick with tension, and the ground trembled beneath their feet. Jack's mind raced as he looked around the chamber. The walls, once covered in intricate symbols, were now alive, shifting and glowing with an intensity that was almost blinding. He could feel the heat of the energy radiating from the Heartstone, and the strange hum that filled the room was deafening. "We need to shut it down," Jack said, his voice barely audible over the noise. Lyra nodded, her face pale but determined. "I know, but I can't do it alone. The mechanism to control the Heartstone, it's hidden somewhere in this room." The walls continued to pulse, and Jack could feel the temperature dropping even further. Every step they took seemed to make the vibrations grow stronger. The stone doorway they had entered through was sealed shut, and there was no way out. The only way forward was to find the control mechanism Lyra had mentioned. Lyra's eyes darted around the chamber, scanning every inch of the walls for any sign of a hidden passage or switch. Her brow furrowed as she traced her fingers along the carvings, her touch gentle but urgent. "The symbols," she muttered to herself. "They're not just decorative. They're part of the mechanism. I just need to." Suddenly, a loud crack echoed through the chamber, and a portion of the wall shifted. A hidden panel slid open, revealing a complex array of ancient controls. Lyra gasped. "There it is. The control panel." She rushed toward it, her fingers moving swiftly over the surface. Jack followed closely behind, his heart pounding. In his chest, the panel was covered in more of the strange symbols, and it seemed to glow with the same energy as the Heartstone itself. Lyra's hands trembled as she worked, trying to decipher the controls. The room shook violently, and Jack could feel the ground beneath him shifting. The ruins were destabilizing, and they had little time left. "Hurry," Jack urged, his voice tight with fear. Lyra nodded, her focus unwavering. "I'm trying, but this is ancient technology. It's not like anything I've ever seen before." She pressed a series of symbols in rapid succession, and for a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft click, the glowing symbols on the panel shifted, and a low hum began to reverberate through the room. The Heartstone's pulsing light began to dim, the energy slowly dissipating. Jack let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "Is it working?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Lyra didn't answer right away. She was still focused on the panel, her brow furrowed in concentration. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the last of the glowing symbols faded, and the room fell silent. The vibrations stopped, and the temperature began to return to normal. The Heartstone's glow dimmed to a faint, steady light. Jack and Lyra stood there, both of them breathing heavily, their bodies tense with the aftermath of the close call. Lyra turned to Jack, her face a mix of relief and exhaustion. "We did it," she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack nodded, a small smile crossing his face. "We did." But as they stood there in the silence, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something was still off. The ruins were no longer shaking, but he could still feel the weight of the mystery pressing down on them. The Heartstone had been deactivated, but what had caused it to become so unstable in the first place? And what did this mean for their journey ahead? He turned to Lyra, his expression serious. "This isn't over, is it?" Lyra met his gaze, her eyes clouded with uncertainty. "No," she replied, her voice soft but firm. "This is only the beginning." The silence that followed the deactivation of the Heartstone was almost suffocating. Jack and Lyra stood motionless in the center of the chamber, their breathing slowly returning to normal. The pulsating light from the Heartstone had faded, and the eerie hum that had filled the air was now a distant memory. For a moment, it seemed as if the ruins themselves had exhaled a collective sigh of relief, settling back into their age-old stillness. But even in this newfound calm, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that something more was at play. He turned to Lyra, his expression serious. "We stopped it for now, but why did it become so unstable in the first place?" Lyra glanced down at the Heartstone, now a dim, steady light on the pedestal. "I don't know. It's never reacted like this before. My people used it as a tool for connection, a way to communicate with each other across vast distances. But something has changed, something triggered this." Jack could hear the uncertainty in her voice. "What do you mean, something triggered it?" Lyra's gaze shifted to the far wall, her eyes narrowing. "The Heartstone has always been dormant, until now. But when we uncovered the map and activated the mechanisms, it somehow awoke. It's like it's reacting to our presence." Jack felt a knot form in his stomach. "So, it's not just a relic. It's alive in a way." Lyra hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, it's tied to the very essence of my people's history, their memories, and their power. But if we can't understand why it's reacting this way, we may not be able to control it." The weight of her words hung in the air between them. They had uncovered so much already, but now the real mystery had only deepened. Jack knew they couldn't stop here. They needed to understand what had set the Heartstone off, and why it seemed to have awakened with such force. "What's our next move?" Jack asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty gnawing at him. Lyra took a deep breath, her eyes scanning the room. "There's more to this ruin than what we've discovered so far. The Heartstone is part of a larger network. There are other artifacts, other devices hidden throughout the ruins. We need to find them, and we need to understand their purpose." Jack nodded. It was clear now that their journey had taken a darker turn. This wasn't just about restoring Lyra's ancestral legacy. It was about unlocking a power far beyond their understanding. They had only scratched the surface, and now they had to venture even deeper into the ruins, into the heart of the mystery. "We'll need to be careful," Jack said, his voice low. "If these artifacts are as dangerous as the Heartstone, we could be walking into something we're not ready for." Lyra looked at him, a flicker of determination in her eyes. "We have no choice. My people's future depends on this. We can't turn back now." Jack's mind raced as they began to move deeper into the ruins. The uncertainty of what lay ahead hung over them like a dark cloud, but there was no going back. Together, they had uncovered the first piece of a puzzle that spanned not just centuries, but possibly millennia. What they found next would shape not only Lyra's future, but the fate of her entire people. The walls seemed to close in on them as they continued their search, the air thick with anticipation. Jack felt the weight of the unknown pressing down on him, but he also felt something else, a sense of purpose. They were on the brink of discovering something world-changing, and with each step, they were drawing closer to answers. But what would those answers be? The deeper they went, the more questions arose. And the more they uncovered, the more they realized that nothing was quite as it seemed in these ancient ruins. As they ventured deeper into the ruins, Jack could feel the atmosphere around them growing thicker, more charged. The walls seemed to pulse with a strange energy, and the faint hum from the Heartstone echoed through the corridors, its rhythm now steady but still carrying an ominous undertone. Lyra led the way, her pace quick but measured, her eyes scanning every shadow, every carving on the walls as if searching for a hidden clue. Jack followed closely behind, his mind racing with questions. What had they really uncovered here? What was the true power of the Heartstone? And how was it connected to these ancient artifacts scattered throughout the ruins? They reached a large chamber, and Lyra paused, taking in the sight before them. The room was vast, the ceiling arching high above them, its stone walls covered with more of the intricate carvings they had seen earlier. But there was something different about this room. In the center, standing on a raised platform, was another artifact. This one was much larger than the Heartstone, and it seemed to glow with a soft, golden light. Lyra stepped forward, her hand reaching out almost instinctively. "This is it," she whispered, her voice full of awe. "The Nexus Stone. It's said to be the heart of my people's power." Jack's gaze shifted from the Nexus Stone to Lyra. "What does it do? What's its purpose?" Lyra's face was etched with uncertainty. "It's said to be a source of unimaginable energy. But we don't know how to activate it, or what will happen when we do." Jack took a cautious step forward, his mind racing. He had a feeling that the Nexus Stone was far more than just a relic. It was connected to the Heartstone, to the power that had just nearly overwhelmed them, and it held the answers to questions that both of them were desperate to understand. "And you think we can use it to help your people?" he asked. Lyra hesitated, her eyes never leaving the glowing stone. "I don't know, but I have to try. This is what my ancestors left behind. This is what I was meant to find." Jack could hear the resolve in her voice, but he also sensed the weight of the responsibility she was carrying. Whatever the Nexus Stone was, it wasn't something to be taken lightly. He couldn't deny the pull he felt toward it as well. They had come so far, uncovered so much, and now they were standing at the threshold of something far greater than either of them could have imagined. "We need to be careful," Jack said, his voice firm. "We don't know what kind of power we're dealing with here. We can't just walk up and activate it without understanding the consequences." Lyra nodded, though her eyes still lingered on the Nexus Stone. "I know, but I've seen the future of my people in the Heartstone. I've seen their suffering, their disconnection. This is the key to restoring them." Jack took a deep breath, weighing his options. They had already risked so much to get here, and now they were standing at the crossroads of an unknown future. But he also knew that they couldn't leave without fully understanding what they had uncovered. Together, they had uncovered pieces of a puzzle, and now they needed to put them together, no matter how dangerous the answers might be. With a final look at Lyra, Jack nodded. "Let's figure this out," he said. Lyra stepped forward, her hand inching closer to the Nexus Stone. The energy in the room seemed to swell, and for a moment, Jack felt a strange shift in the air, as if the very fabric of time and space was about to bend. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back. The journey they had started had led them here, to this moment, and the choices they made now would change the course of everything. The fate of Lyra's people, the Heartstone, and the Nexus Stone, everything was about to converge in a way neither of them could have ever predicted.